I'm here to introduce Dawn Emerson, and she's going to do the walkthrough. She said she would like questions during her presentation, okay? And she's got little green stickers on the ones that she's going to talk about, just in case at that particular moment you're not able to see the painting. You'll know what she's talking about later when you can see the painting. Okay, Dawn?
Okay, and please let me know if you cannot hear me, because I can hear me fine, but we probably 4 hours here yesterday, just soaking in the color, the beauty, and also went through the walkthrough with the judge. So occasionally I may talk about the pieces that won an award, but she was explaining her impression of that piece and why she chose it. And she had a theme about how she was choosing. And she, if you forgive me for reading this, it was written at 4 in the morning and I'm not sure I was dreaming it or actually wrote it. So Margaret said that the show was about who we are today. That's what art's goal and role in the world today is, to reflect back. And the prizes she awarded were for mastery of the pastel medium in all the many ways it can be used, but also how the silent visual storytelling of artists can reflect back to viewers where we are in time, history, and the evolution of humanity. Art shows us ourselves as we struggle to deal with change and power in the world. It also can make political statements, and you will see those represented here as well. After pondering this, I feel that this show also shows us what we need today in the world, which in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, is humility. The artist has been called on throughout history to show off both the patron and the saint, to show who has money and power, the plight of the poor, the gore of warfare, and the pride of victory. At the same time, we artists seek to honor these majestic things. We seek to capture the beauty in a single rock, a piece of sunlight or shadow on a wall, the spiritual elegance of a sunset or a sunrise, right? Sometimes these are also things that are invisible. They're feelings. They're inexplicable, invisible things that we try to materialize, conceptual, transcendental, whatever they may be. What I would like to show you as we walk through this beautiful show is how, in my humble opinion, I see the artist as a human being, appointed to be the humility keepers, especially pastelists. We are the mimers, the visual jugglers, the Shakespearean troubadour who sees and reflects back to the powerful to remember their humanity. We are the silent storytellers who spin color and sometimes the lack of it into tapestries of great beauty. We are the visually empathic who listen and who see and who try to celebrate wonder and beauty that is inside every human being, every grain of sand. We are the ones who pick through the garbage and consider it a treasure when we find a remnant or a flickering spark and restore it to a beautiful fire. We are the ones who keep reminding the world to celebrate the gifts around us, the beauty of imperfection, the unseeable, the feeling of joy in being humble and being small. We submit ourselves to an idea, to our pain, with all our lifetimes of practice and suffering and stories, successes and failures, to be the silent, empty vessel that can remind us as humans to feel, to look, to be grateful, accountable, generous, and humble. Each time we begin a painting, we humble ourselves to the canvas, to the paper, to these simple, humble sticks of pigments and pans of stick. I have to put that in, okay? We cannot forget the pans. We enter uneasy liminal spaces between reality and invisibility, and we are humbled when we succeed. The gallery is a place to celebrate that success. Okay?
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Basically, it comes at 4 in the morning, maybe for many of you as well. And sometimes that feeling of, oh, that's what I was trying to do, and you offer yourself up and you sort of surrender to not knowing, or to the depression and healing oneself and maybe part of the world by your artwork. And I can't tell you what you're going to see in a painting. I can only tell you that I have indicated the ones that I feel speak to me from the heart, and I hope they do for you. There may be others. So I'm going to speak very briefly about these paintings and show you why I might have felt that way. If you're synesthetic or you're autistic, you perceive the world in a different way. And sometimes I hear the sound of something in a painting. You know, it sounds like a piece of music, it sounds like jazz, or it sounds like a quiet, eloquent piece of classical music, or a lullaby, or something that reminds you that it's okay to go to sleep, right? And that's what art can do too. So I would like you to come along with me where you are. I think you can all see this eloquent piece. Carol Stog-Wasson. Yeah. It makes you thrill at the connection between the earth and the sky. It also reminds you on so many levels of our tiny place on this planet. And it radiates color and life and just movement in such a simple, elegant way. So sometimes less is much more, and the subject that you choose can reflect that absolute quality of movement and breath, light, evaporation, all of these things in one thing. If you will come with me while you're here, I'll ask you to view this very different piece. The camels. The camels are, and the title of it is Kids Nowadays. It's by John Fishka. It's a very difficult one to take in all at once. You have to move in and out of it, and it made me laugh, both by his description. So I invite you please to read the stories that not all the artists have left by their paintings, but sometimes a title or the description can really offer you great insight. But there's still more, much more, that they can't tell you in more than 100 words. So this one is just eloquently done, and I love it when a painting makes me smile. And I think that that is part of humility, and you'll see that repeated in a few other places here where there can be beauty that stops you in your tracks, and it can just be something that puts a smile on your face and changes your whole day. And this one did that for me. Over here, just the simplicity of the space, the arrangement. They are radishes talking to each other, but it's the artist that takes a second and notices those things that nobody else will spend the time. So the various colors of the shadowing that the radishes are making, and just the various shapes and lines, weight, and elegance of, so they are reaching out to each other to do a waltz. Before you get eaten up, or before you get cut into pieces, you know, that it's just sort of a very beautiful piece. And I did not say it's Barbary. This one obviously celebrates the drama, the beauty, the sky, how sunset can make us feel hopeful for another day, and yet, especially in today's world, how sunsets can evoke that darkening of the spirit, the feeling of loss, all of that. So it's both a promise that another day will come, and it's also a reminder of what has left us. So for the exquisiteness of the handling of the medium, I thought that Catherine Myers did a very, very beautiful job speaking from the heart. So this one you won't be able to see. Actually, I'm going to ask you to stay over there outside first. And as I said, just look at the green tags and I will give you more time to breathe this in. And I'm not going to speak the full amount of time. I will sort of go through this all quickly. There are quite a few. And then if you have comments or questions, please, I will stay in one place at the end and you can ask me or talk to me if you want to, or talk to your friends. But the green tags will tell you which ones I'm referring to, okay? So this one over here by Laura Pollock is a very personal one, and her story was very gripping and intense. But again, as a way of going internally and being able to represent the invisible, those tensions, the pressure that one feels in the world every day. I feel like she did an absolutely beautiful job of turning it into something exquisitely beautiful with volume and light and hope. And she herself told me yesterday that when she was finished painting this, she could breathe again. And it was October 8th. And that's what we could all, I think all of us, since COVID, have realized the power of art and color to heal us. The pastel medium is the most humble. And we've all had the gallery tell us, oh yeah, those little drawings, you know, those little things, as opposed to the oils, which are sort of, you know, the stars of the world, the real art. Why do we stick with pastel? Because of the immediacy, the beauty, the color, the intensity, and the versatility of pans and sticks. Just saying. This one I thought was exquisite, and the story went along with it. Just the muted background and the focus on what he calls the queen. This is Sergei Pitia, not sure if I'm pronouncing the word correctly, but his humility when he knelt down before her and asked her on the beach if he could take her, if she would pose for him. And you know, an artist has to do that. And the royalty and the whole story there to me is just one that made me smile. And the way he captured personality in this with his color was exquisite. Versus this, we all love Corey Pitkin's work, and yet, and his description of this title, which is the shoegazing. He was referring to musicians who looked down at their shoes at one point, I think during the 70s or 80s as they were playing. To me, it was his own humility. And the brevity with strokes and color, the limited palette to me, the tonalism of it, everything just spoke to that idea of let us be humble, let us be thankful every moment that we can. So go ahead and walk through there. If we go here at this one.
Can I ask a question? When the judges are judging the pieces, do they judge also looking at the title? And I'm thinking of the camel. The camel's, the description and the title really drew me in even just as much as the drawing. So do judges get to see that info or not?
I believe they do. I wasn't a judge for this show, so I don't know. That is a question you can ask at the desk.
Okay.
Yes.
The cards are not up when the judging goes.
And the story is not available.
No story, okay.
So that in and of itself is a very important question that should be talked about a lot. What does a title do? Do you need the title? Should it be self-explanatory? You know, these are things that I'm not talking about right now. I love knowing the story behind something, and I feel it informs a story tremendously. Others adamantly oppose that idea, and it provides you with a great opportunity to have a glass of wine and sit down with somebody and hash that out. But I'm not going to comment about that. For me, it's very important, and I love, sometimes I have a difficult time titling something, so I ask a kid, you know, what would you call that? Or what do you see in it? And you'd be shocked when other people see it. So it's just part of the deal, you know. And so for me, it's important. For other people, and I do take the time to read. But some people here have not put any words. And it may be because they speak a different language and they didn't know how to write it. So, or they felt it wasn't needed. And so that was their statement, and I have no way to know. Okay. Fred Summers' work here, if you know Fred Summers, He, like all of us, has suffered loss in his life recently. And for me, this has a sound. The sound of color, the sound of what he is looking at. This, to me, is a tonal poem. A tone poem, which is a kind of programmatic piece of music that evolves and tells you something. It describes a story audibly with music and movements. Fred's life is this kind of tonal poem to me. And it's about spiritual alchemy almost, and belief that he has. To me, the sound of ice, he was describing this to me yesterday, cracking away, the transformation from water to ice, or ice to water, the melting, the promise of vegetation to come up in the future, again, that life will resume, the joy will return. This is what he was trying to transmit in this, and I feel like it's just masterfully done with his own technique that he's been developing, and I absolutely adore this piece. This side. So once again, Jacob is simpleness, and just you can feel the touch, you can feel the wind of the clouds, the changing temperature. I live in Central Oregon, and how does the landscape inform who you are as a person, who you are as an artist? I don't think it's deniable that it infiltrates every cell in our being, where we live, how we respond to our world, and especially if you have open space around you and can feel like you're a participant in the listening of the world around you, and the gifts that are there for the taking every minute if you just stop. So the artist stops, and we watch, and we wait, and we listen, like a photographer, but we take these tools of humble pigments, sticks, rocks, whatever, minerals mashed up into a stick form or pan form, and we put them onto a surface and render what we see, or what we think we see, or what we thought we saw, a memory, and make it alive again. And so to me, that was just a very beautiful image for that. Versus something like this, and when you read the story, this is by Charles Peer, and he took a video of this, just the light, it was a haphazard thought, and then he realized what he had seen. Sometimes you take a picture and you don't even know why, and then you realize later, oh, that's what I didn't know I was responding to that. And especially with the video, you can see those in between the stops. And the rhythm of this, the light creates its own sense of beautiful rhythm. I think it's a very daring and beautiful approach to, it's an image to ponder. How many times do you walk right through? And also the scariness of the darkness, and how do you portray that? Very different story here. And in this case, I don't think the story does it justice. Edgar Caravio. And to me, I love walking into these old places and feeling and smelling the must and the, what do you call it, the climate in there. It's all humid and sticky, but there's light outside, just the little bits of windows, or what do you call those, boss? The little windows of light here. Everything else is dark, and you have to peer into it. And I think that tonalistic way of handling this was just elegantly done. Very difficult to do, rendering all of those details with the dissipating light going into the background and then the brilliant light. So it's got darkness all the way to brilliant light. And everything is described. If you take a picture of this, use your phone and then really blow it up and see. You'll see the detail in there better than you can in this light, although it's a very well lit show. But it speaks to the place, and maybe it's about a forgotten time, or you can think of yourself in your own studio and loving the oldness around you in every piece of equipment that maybe belonged to somebody else in your family or in the past, okay? Or just walking in and discovering this kind of gem. This one I chose to talk about only because the simplicity of the lighting, the elegance of who this model is, and the artist's relationship to the model. Brian Bailey in New York, apparently this is a very well-known model, and every time she begins to pose, she tells them some sort of story about her pose. And so it informs the artist as they're going, which I thought was a wonderful thing, rather than the artist having to pull and drag out the personality of this, or seek knowing what is below the surface of the skin. You can feel the weight, maybe the life. It doesn't matter if she's nude or she's closed, her face tells everything. Every single part of her body tells you her life experience, or you can imagine it. Willow Belfry's beautiful toneless painting here. Just a foray into darkness, much like this one over here into the wood shop. And I thought it spoke from the heart about darkness and about losing the light. And yet there's an opening to the moonlight. So it's very, very subtly done. You have to get up really close to see all the tiny little marks, and you might miss what she's really saying. Do you want to say anything else about that, Willow?
You did beautiful.
Thank you. I don't pretend to know what the artist was thinking. I can only respond in my own way to my own feelings that I relate to that. But the fact that it reaches out and touches me, I think is important to me.
Could you say something about Susan Kaczynski?
Which one? Oh, yes, thank you. I forgot. So I just love that I mentioned earlier that the artist is the only one who cares about this kind of stuff, right? I mean, we see that light on the wall and we go nuts. People would think we're crazy. What is it? What are you getting so excited about? We know this is hugely important. We do not care, I mean, that anybody recognizes why. To us, it's life, it's light, it's, if you believe in faith, it's whatever, it's all of that coming down in shafts and catching and illuminating our world for us. And don't we know how important that is, right now especially, climate change and all of it. So when we go into the old people, it's simple, and yet that light is so real, and they have alchemically made it into pieces of substance that we can enjoy. And you can almost hear it singing. Oh. So that's what I love about it. Thank you for that. I'm going to give you a minute to go and look at that. And then just turn your back on that wall and we'll take this one. Anybody else have comments or questions? And again, there's plenty of time remaining at the end of this cycle for you to just walk on your own and sense whatever it is that you want to sense from music. Betty Epperson, she talks about gentle chaos. And sometimes this can be, you know how some days you just wake up and you feel all confused. Nothing seems to make sense. But you go into the studio and you sort of surrender that confusion and hope that something will evolve and it straightens you out. And to me, the variation in marks, in texture, and the direction, the movement of color, just spoke to me about needing to trust that the chaos will go away, that it will settle out, that there is some purpose in the chaos that allows you to find your way. And the discovery of color and how incredibly powerful color can be when it's placed next to another color or without pretty at all. So I just invite you to enjoy that piece. Any other comments, questions? Behind you on this wall. Again, similar to the beautiful smokestack that we saw, just the power of observation, awareness, and feeling connected to that cloud. And her title, this is Conn Smith, I'm calling it a woman, I hope I'm not incorrect, but whatever. The Promise of Rain for Breakfast. Here's where the title is so beautifully and eloquently. She's like, don't worry, the rain will come, and there it is. So a simple use of low horizon, huge sky, one simple cloud. Okay, but what power it has to express itself. On this wall behind you, looking at us, Lynn Diefenbach, masterfully done, not doing the whole tree, just taking a slice of a tree and making it into this format to show its brilliance and all of its absolute beauty to us, to remind us that every time a tree blooms, life is happening again. So for me, it's more than the execution. Yes, it's masterfully done, as many of these paintings are, and yet there is depth and absolute surrender to the beauty of something else, a kind of humility to the subject that for me is what the artist feels and can express. Inside here, on this wall, you'll see two other images, the waves that will make you hear the waves and feel the sand. You can almost feel the moisture. And when I started to move there, like I grew up on a beach, and so, you know, you can feel the tide coming in, the waves. It's absolutely gorgeously done. Again, a very simple idea, stopped in time, that lets us experience exactly what the artist did. As does this one. So this one is by Beth Tucky Williams, and this one is in Kindle. This one feels like it's almost made out of crepe paper or tissue paper. It feels like it will blow away if you're too aggressive, if you approach it too fast. So approach it slowly. Look at the edges. Look at the limited color palette, and yet feel the space of both of them next to each other. Ask yourself how they're different. Space is one of the 7 elements. We have line, texture, value, edges, color, space. And that's all we have. And what she has done is to create something that is almost unimaginable, but imagine maybe how a bee might feel looking at these flowers.
Dawn?
Yes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, thank you. Okay, Barbara Janicki's also has this lovely, lovely feeling of presence where she is right there, and the colors just sort of vibrate next to each other. They're almost complementary, where she's put some of these lines, the oranges and the blues, and the warmth of that wire. So I can feel the warmth, I can smell it, but I can also hear it. And so how many, and eye-wise, of course you can see it. So trying to put yourself in a synesthetic sense almost, where you can smell the roses without the rose being there, and feel the presence of what she experienced when she was there. This one is so different, and it looks a little bit stark. It's Deanna Goldsmith. I love that she uses yellow and her name is Goldsmith. And she deliberately stayed with the yellow. And I just feel like this is such a clean, elegantly portrayed image of design and simplicity. There is a living thing. Normally I say still lifes are dead, but they're not. Those subjects are inanimate, and yet the bird is a gift. And it visits her every day in her world. And it tells a story of putting inanimate with animate objects and using a simple color, yellow, which is the biggest visual color, but also the most difficult, in my opinion, to really use well. And she did that. So, you know, this is a structured, deliberate setup, and yet the sensitivity to it is eloquent.
Well, it's all pastel pencil, right?
It's all pastel pencil, correct. At least that's what she says. Jeff Fioravanti, that wave, unlike those waves, just the contrast, the qualities of the light and the awareness to see what is in the middle of something that maybe some of us never get to see. So he brought something that I may never experience right into my vision. And with all the power of a single wave, the scale is truly unknowable here. This could be a huge painting, and though it is extremely small. The one next to this, and this is Randall Cronblack. And for me, it's almost like the yellow is tearing apart. You know, the shadows are just sort of going away, dissipating, and the yellow is pulling it away from each other. So there's tremendous tension in this, and I feel like the beauty of the simplicity, the beauty comes from the simplicity of the colors, just complementary colors, handled in a way that is really elegant. Did you all have time to look? So quickly. Gloria Signori, you'll read her story, and I don't believe I've ever met her, certainly know about her, but her constant desire to, as soon as an image appears, to get rid of it and to try and express, as I said just a moment ago, the smell of the roses without depicting the rose, which is really getting out there. And of course, the further you stand back, you can see the vase, you can feel the flowers, but you can also smell them. And so I think she set out to accomplish a sensory impact with the audience, with herself, and is willing to destroy what's there. So her process is not just from beginning to end, but inviting mistakes and chance and opportunity and revision constantly in the work. And that makes it very humble and very human. Enlightenment. Okay. We will go out and go to this one. Yes. This one has such deceptive simplicity, right? It's a tonal in the high key areas, very few colors used, and yet, oh my gosh, right? She was captured by this place, the light, and that quality of light that is what artists, or darkness, that we try to capture. The air around the model. When I teach figure drawing, you know, if a figure is holding their arms like this, they're holding space, and not the kind of space that a counselor holds for you, but they're holding air in that space. And she allows us to feel the space of the room and the light on the figure, and just in the most masterful way. So, bravo. This one, so different from that, but similar in many ways to the carpenter's room. The darkness going through this cool snow, and just the promise of warmth and light on the other side. So take that as a symbol of hope that you will be warm again, that you can make it through this dark, cool forest and into the light. So I thought that spoke to me, to the heart. We'll stop at this one right here. Kelly Malukas. Kelly is a master pastelist from Rhode Island, and I've had the pleasure of spending time with her. And she's also an encaustic artist and has a maybe little known life that is about traveling the world with musicians, and very high-powered musicians. And one musician asked her to stay with her who played the harpsichord, or not stay with her, but if his harpsichord could stay in her studio. So she painted this while he was playing these 1,600, pieces of the harpsichord. And you can feel the music in here. The very limited palette not in a traditional way, but the use of just all reds and yellows with those few cool colors, the purple. Just when you get up close to this, it looks like I can find figures and symbols and almost a visual language in here that she, in her mind, was unconsciously or subconsciously absorbing through the music as he played. And I love that. I used to have a model that would play the didgeridoo, and all of a sudden the room would be filled with animals as he went into it and stuff. So you can see that these sounds can materialize into things. That's an alchemical process that is our great gift. And what I search for is how to express it. This one over here, this is by Tammy Tappa. To me, this rings of jazz and Latin music. It just makes me want to dance. She loved the color and just exploited the color for its own sense of life and what it brought to her. Okay. This is by Tanya Chinikova, and very different kind of painting. It appears to be just black and white. You look closer, it's not fussy. It's very sharp edges, and it makes you kind of like, why? What is this trying to tell me? And I felt like this was something that offered light in a different way. It's the reflection off of the surface of the sky onto maybe the ocean or a pond or a lake, but you can feel the wind in that. And it's an unexpected painting that brings a sense of movement and place and environment, and also the coolness of the water and the depth of that water. So just the top surface, but again, beautifully rendered. Like the Camels, Judy Sullivan. Many of us, when we plein air paint, and we feel, something drop from the tree above us, and you realize a squirrel has just thrown down a nut on your head, right? This is called the lookout. And it's just, again, it's that admitting when you're out there that you're out there looking at the clouds that absolutely nobody else in the world cares about at that moment, but you are there to witness, and it is a gift. And this connection with the squirrel just was laughing at her, or she could laugh with it and acknowledge that there was other life besides her around in that situation, and maybe he was watching her paint. This one by Jody Martin. When you read her story, you will understand why I chose it. Her friend is going to the beach, the same beach that she visited when she was younger, and joy of throwing some breadcrumbs up in the sky and having this horde of birds come. And I too experienced that as a kid. I think many of us have experienced that or seen other children doing this. And to be able to, again, with a very limited palette here, and almost a linen kind of texture to it. It looks like it's old, but it isn't. And so it's a memory, but she has invigorated that memory with a spirit of joy, which is, again, very, you think about it, how do you do that? Can you do that with a camera? Or do you need to have the feeling and the touch behind it and the years of experience and practice and failures to make that happen? And the ones that I have not included, please look at everything. And there are many others that I have missed or didn't think I had time for. This one gets a great deal of notice. Eileen Gager Stanfield is another Oregonian. She and I studied with Harvey Brown, and he would be so proud of her to have won this beautiful award, and well deserved. Dressing up, setting a stage, using vintage clothing. mimicking the rich and wealthy. It's called the heiresses. And being able to put yourself in a position of play by putting on their clothes and imagining, what are they talking about? What are they doing? And the design of it, and the way the negative space works around it. When you look at spots of orange and see how they're connected visually, or unexpected uses of magenta here, and just how it's composed, and what they could be someplace, but you're not sure where. And the color is not just blended here, but it is radiating with some, it's like luminous. So without really using complementary colors very much at all, she has achieved this luminous quality of light that I thought unhuman, which is quite beautiful. Let me know if I miss anything, okay? Oh, thank you. I missed that. Okay. So when you first come up to this, it's striking, right? I mean, it's done so differently. And it's a sort of pointless Seurat type of simultaneous contrast thing with these little dots. But then the texture that those dots creates, it feels like I'm looking at a piece of ceramic. It feels like it's just going to evaporate any moment and break apart. The look is so intense, the lighting so soft and gently rendered, the gradation from warm blue to cool blue, and within this brown and blue and violet area, it's just a gorgeous painting. And the composition to me is so absolutely elegant. Chi Quang is the painter. I hope to meet him one day. Children of the Plateau, and I feel that it is just brilliantly done, very sensitively designed. Okay. Mark Ivan Cole, this one again, you can feel the solitude of being in this place and the willingness to work on every level of detail in a very limited palette again, and yet it's the darkness in a different kind of way, the promise of light at the other side. Linda Cleanser is using a black surface underneath here on this one. First I thought this was scraping through a top surface to get to the bottom. I'm not sure how she did it, but it's just unexpected to have that kind of brevity in mark and stroke and to make it feel so powerful. So again, a very simple, small painting that has huge feeling and presence. This one, Alice Laverne, is, it's not a perfect painting. There are, you think, okay, wait a minute. If I was drawing ellipses or circles or something, maybe there's some issues here, but maybe that was deliberate. Maybe, and the title of this is Dented. Nobody is perfect. We're all dented. How do you make light feel dented? How do you make this setup feel full of light and dented? And the quality of light here is something that I've never seen. And it makes me want to know what and how it was accomplished. It was like, where is this? What does it mean to her? And I think it's just an elegant, again, not a lot of use of color, very, high tones mostly, but the shape of the dark and the technique of handling these edges, softening them, fracturing them a little bit, right? Just with different planes, not in an expected way, to me was stunning. Finally, well, not finally, these two in this corner, very different. Every time I look at this one by Ellen Lambs, I see something different. I see an ice pond, or I see fog on the ice, or I see a cloud coming in, and it's moving. And there's this quietness to it about winter that tells me, whoa, where is this, and what is going to happen? So it has this sense of presence.
This one by Glenn Escal Perez is from the Philippines, and he calls it a mystic mosaic. It's a symbolic painting, but when you put your nose right to it, you will feel the texture of that. And it's something ancient. You can feel the quality of ancientness without depicting petroglyphs. You are depicting something that is a reference symbologically to something else that I'm not sure what, but it was very striking and unusual to me. So I think we have more on here. I think that's it for my tour of these. I hope you have enjoyed it. I am humbled by all of this, and I appreciate you listening to whatever I have to say, and I would love to hear what you have to say.